through
So
Aurora
Tim, you're
sometimes. I
saying
don't
this
know.
is all a dream.
Oh, it could be all a
we're
dream.
gonna
It
we're
could
gonna
be.
be to the end of Starfield and we wake up. Oh,
Oh my goodness.
there would be
Can you
riots
imagine?
in the street. Welcome to Starfield Signal, the place for everything Starfield. I am your friend Luke, and I'm actually here with another friend today. Tim from RPG RX is here with us, and I'm just going to give the floor to Tim for a moment. Tim, introduce yourself to us.
Hey there, Luke. Nice to meet you all. I am so fortunate to be here. My name is Tim. I am a pharmacist, and the only reason that's relevant is because it's the inspiration for my channel, RPGRX. Hopefully, give you guys some interesting perspectives on some of the scientific details I've picked up on Starfield. Because, man, ever since this game started becoming announced, of course, I was a Bethesda fan before that, so I was intrigued day one. But
Mm-hmm.
they started talking about pharmacology research and Aurora being a drug that changed the landscape of neon. Like, these are all really interesting stuff for me, obviously, as a pharmacist background. And yeah, I just want to be able to share this kind of perspective with all of you.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating, Tim. And, I've said it before here on the channel, but I love how Starfield brings people together, how video games bring people together from all different ages and walks of life and cultures and professions as well. And so, and I'm sure your mother is like very proud as well. Like, oh, my boy is now, a pharmacist, but he's using his powers for video games. Maybe
Yeah,
she didn't.
that's definitely something. It's like, oh yeah, this is the why you got your degree, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely.
No,
It's
but
it's more than just a white coat standing behind a high wall.
yes, it's also one standing behind an Xbox.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yes. Well, the first thing I wanted to talk about, everybody, is this is really interesting. So we're all familiar with this six-limbed kind of creature that has been stalking us in the but kind of behind the scenes of the Starfield showcase back in June of 2022. We got a good look at this thing back then in the Crete facility, but we also got a really good look at it too in the Starfield Direct that happened in June of 2023. And this thing looks nasty. And I had kind of a wild theory about this, and I was talking with Tim about this earlier, and I was like, "Do you think I'm an idiot here or not?" He's like, "Well, I've heard this before too." My theory is that maybe this creature, this nasty six-legged creature, and I'll put some footage up on the screen so you know what I'm talking about. But maybe this is like the maggot maws we've seen. Remember the hunting maggot maw that we're kind of chopping up with an axe in one of the Starfield Direct clips? There's also a bunch of little ones that we got a little bit of a glimpse at. We saw a bunch of eggs and everything. What if this creature is, the maggot maws are kind of the larva form. People make fun of me the how I say things all the time. But maybe I know one of the driving main story issues of Starfield is about human civilization, right? The human settlements that they're at risk somehow.
Human settlements throughout the galaxy could be at risk.
Maybe this creature is coming to our little side of the galaxy and has started to infiltrate or infestate, maybe is a better word, the human settlements. And people are turning into these things. And maybe the mature version is this six-legged creature we've seen. So, what kind of what do you think of that? Maybe like an aliens kind of vibe, right? If you think back
Oh my
to
gosh, yes.
Sigourney Weaver, aliens, the popping out of the the chest thing.
I so totally. I mean, I think that it would be a disservice to make a space game with all that's going on and not like provide that kind of
Right,
alien horror.
right.
So, so yeah, no, I think so. I've got a couple, thoughts on this maggot maw creature and
Hmm.
the creature we saw in Crete. First of all, I don't know that they're the same, but what we
Hmm.
can tell, they've got at least thematic similarities. But obviously, that creature in the Crete lab is something that they had up on the whiteboard, and you can see a lot of that up
Right.
on my YouTube channel to see more details on that whiteboard. I go way into that. But the thing that's interesting about that is, there's these tumors that they're trying to extract from it and analyze, and you're not really sure why. and maybe we'll figure that out. But to think about this as some sort of this cancerous creature that has some sort of reproductive abilities that is interesting enough to set up a whole lab for, I think that's where you start to wonder why is it so interesting? Maybe it's because you've got this problem, this galactic plague of sorts. Maybe it's something like the
Right.
Halo flood, where these creatures are just going around and they're infecting people. I mean, we certainly see evidence of disease creatures in the direct or even in the last showcase last year, where they have disease in front of their name.
Hmm.
And I think you pointed out in some of your videos too, Luke, where people have symptoms showing up on their little
Right.
compass. So who's to say that these guys aren't, planting eggs in us when we fight them? I don't know. I will say though, some of the clips we've seen of them, they're pretty aggressive. They're smashing people into the floors, and seems
Yes.
to be doing the same to some of these bigger monsters out there too. So um, well, yeah, maybe these are the late stage guys that are doing a lot of damage, and then the maggot moths are sort of like those larval stage, like you're saying. It's totally possible. I can see that. I can see that.
It looks like this creature is in New Atlantis almost. Okay, yeah, right there. I mean, the
Yeah,
it in the 22 showcase, we just saw it kind of like hopping down a corridor, and it was freaky
yeah,
enough. But here, like boom, and all that blood
yes.
flies up.
Oh my God. And we were like fighting that thing with a pistol in that Crete lab too.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
that's right.
sure. And so I'm like, man, look at the firepower going off in this screen. Like, I don't know.
And one thing I'm noticing. Do you have any thoughts on this, Tim? Uh, it looks like there's kind of some red stuff, kind of that may be like blood splatter, but here it looks like there's some red stuff kind of all around this. Do you think that's blood splatter or some sort of chemical reaction
Yeah.
happening in this beast?
So I think it's a interesting looking thing. When you even look at the whiteboard, you can see there's sort of almost like pauldrons on some of its limbs, and then there's some parts that look less like maybe there's like carapace on parts of it, and then more fleshy organic flesh exposed in other parts.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like a
Okay.
weak point thing where we can shoot them in the right
Oh
spot and
yeah,
they'll take more
yeah.
damage. Who knows? But definitely, I think there's like the bony shells on the forearms, and then
Uh-huh.
there's a little bit more like fleshy underneath there. And that could be just as a result of how these things are made or created. We see even like if we're looking at the Crete lab too, they have these little tumor masses in display cases, and they look like they're kind of hard, but maybe when they spread out, they've got the weak underbelly. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and let's talk a little bit more about the Crete lab and the stuff with the tumors that you talked about a lot in your first video.
Yes. So yeah, it just for those who haven't seen the video, just kind of a preview. The Crete Lab is one of those places where Todd says, "Oh yeah, this is one of the early missions in the game where you're going to go to," and you see the player kind of do the gameplay showcase through all of that, and you get these hints that there's something going on. There's some research going on,
Yes.
and I think that's where we see this creature in the first place. Um, the whiteboard is something that, like, when the player gets the little Equinox rifle, they kind of look up and they see this thing, and so it's pretty clear that they want you to see that whiteboard. Um,
Right.
as compared to some of
But
the whiteboards we
but
saw
no
in the
one
direct.
except
But
you knew what it was.
so yeah, there's plenty of people who took the time to look at the words on this thing, but it's hard to piece it all together because
Right.
first of all, the words are blurry, and your 4K video actually helped me get some better resolution on that. So thank you very much.
Good. I'm
Um,
glad.
and that allowed me to kind of piece together. Oh yeah, there are some molecules on the screen here that kind of give me a better sense of what's going on, and they're DNA molecules. And so you
Okay.
see the ATGC of DNA, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. Um, and there's actually a little bit of an error on this whiteboard. You can see it says experimental analysis of selected clone cell. And there's a couple
Mhm.
steps to this, right? There's
Right.
heterogeneous cells to be extracted from captured specimens. So clearly, this is something that the scientists have captured on Crete and they're looking at it. And they're looking at these cells, and there's something called tumor growth in the middle for step two. and they're making this weird looking mask kind of over on the right. And at the end of the day, they're looking at the DNA on this because tumor growth implies cancer. These
Hmm.
DNA mismatches can cause cancer. So I think that's why they're looking at it so closely. It's
And to
just that
go
the color coding on this is a little off.
and to go back to kind of that original crazy theory, I feel like that mass on the right after the step two resembles those little baby maggots, maggot moths that we
It
were
could
talking
be
about
like,
earlier.
yeah, it's not far-fetched to think that, because I think there's even a shot in the direct where we see one of the little ones walking around and there's all sorts of stuff
Yes,
all over the walls.
that's what I'm thinking
I
about.
feel like, yeah, I feel like that definitely checks out with that environment. And I think that this is what we see also in the glass display case earlier on in this section. So,
Okay.
and this is awesome. You're actually giving me probably the best resolution I've personally seen on this.
Oh,
So,
great.
um, so yeah, no, I think this has got to be related to that thing somehow. And I think
Yeah.
again, this could be a maggot mob egg. Like we saw a couple
Hmm.
things that look like that up
Man,
in
that's
their
bizarre.
layers. But yeah, they were like the guys that were looking at this were studying it before you come in and end their life. So
Right.
um, so this is a lab which I was looking and I was in love with Aurora since the very first neon location video. So when this popped up on the screen, I was like, oh boy, we actually get to see the thing. So um, but yeah, so we got this lab where these guys are wearing hazmat suits. They've got all this, you know, it seems like chemical manufacturing facility behind them, and they've got these crates of this Aurora, which is supposedly this pleasure drug that people are coming from all over to see, but it's illegal
Right.
everywhere else. And the universe seems to be making this on mass, despite all that. And they've got these fish hanging up in the room too, which is just interesting to see that they are still actively extracting probably the chemical from these fish
Right. They
to
haven't found a
create this
way.
product.
Yeah, they haven't found a way to what would you call that? Uh,
Synthesize.
synthesize. Very
Yeah.
interesting. So why do you
They figured out meat, but they can't figure out this drug, I guess.
why do you think that might be with like a typical psych? And one question I have, and I don't want to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
could you explain the difference between a psychedelic drug and a psychotropic drug? Or is it kind of like one is an umbrella and there's others? And I Googled this
that's
3 or 4
exactly right.
times
Yeah.
and I couldn't understand what the difference was.
No, yeah, no, you're totally right. And honestly, there's no dictionary that's going to give you an amazing answer. But yeah,
Right.
psychotropic, anything that basically affects your mind. So
Okay.
your antidepressants, your stimulants, whatever else that affects your mind, caffeine and alcohol and all that good stuff. They're all
Okay.
psychotropic because they affect your mind. And
Okay.
psychedelic, I don't think there's a 100% confirmed definition for psychedelic, other than that it's usually associated with hallucinations and the
Right.
things that psychedelic drugs do. And those are typically, your LSD, your ketamine, uh, MDMA to some degree. So
Okay.
all these kinds of drugs can kind of produce these hallucinogenic effects. So you're seeing things that aren't there. You're hearing things that aren't there, and sometimes you're feeling things. Your
Hmm.
escalated emotions too.
Okay.
And so I think that this is just a pleasure drug that's capitalizing on all of that kind of a high, where
Right.
you've got these vibrant neon lights going on. You've got the
Right.
music dancing with those fish people, and which I think is probably the next frame, right? Like,
Yes. These guys.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Is
this
that
is
your first
exactly
role
it.
play, Tim, right there?
Oh my goodness. I got to get that suit on immediately. So yeah, no, this is interesting because I think this is kind of the vibe that they're going for when you're taking
Right.
Aurora.
So it's
And
very recreational. There's not really, or we don't see any
that's
medicinal applications of it in this direct.
and it's not impossible that is the case, but
Hmm.
they but that's definitely the vibe we're getting from this, and the fact it's illegal everywhere else. But so yeah, with that, I think you can safely assume that this drug is something that they've pulled out of these fish, and there's
Yeah.
not really a better way to get this kind of a high, is my guess, even with all their synthetic abilities in this future. It's a recreational drug. If they're getting
Yes.
for a certain kind of high that they clearly can't replicate other than by getting it out of the fish themselves. Although, if
Right.
you watch my video, I kind of make the argument that they have all this kind of machinery for a reason. I think they are taking the chemical from the fish and they're actually altering it. So, like you can
Okay.
do certain amount of synthesis to a product, and that's why it's semi-synthetic, I believe. Um,
Okay.
but the
Which may
base
be
of
why
it
it's
is
illegal.
could be it actually that's a very astute point. I think maybe the actual addition of certain moieties of that chemical could be the reason why it's producing these kind of highs and stuff like that.
Okay.
So great point.
And was it you, or I might have heard it in a different video? Um, did you make the point where, we see a bunch of we see various different fish
Yeah.
on here where maybe they've found out how to extract the Aurora chemical out of the predators of the Aurora fish? Is that
Yes.
right? You're talking about the potential of maybe them harnessing this element or semi synthesizing it out of the original. I'm butchering this. Talk. I'm butchering that
Yeah,
so
no,
bad.
so
Oh,
no worries, no worries. Yeah, no, I was just making the point that the fact that they have both this industrial equipment and the fish in the lab
yes.
means that they're probably taking the base chemical out of the fish and they're adding something to it
Yes.
semi-synthetically through the lab
Yeah, yeah,
procedure.
yeah.
Um, and I think you had just brought up the point where basically we don't know why there's several fish hanging up in this.
Right. Multiple different
So
types.
right, and there's small fish, there's slightly bigger fish, and there's a different color fish going on in this one room. And this theory is that one of them creates Aurora, and the other ones are kind of feeding off that. So maybe
Right.
that's why they have all these fish up because they're cutting the Aurora out of all of these fish because the predator of the
Hmm.
Aurora fish probably has Aurora in it if it eats enough of it. So
Right.
um, that's at least one theory to explain why there's different fish going on in this one lab. But who knows? Maybe it's just one fish and I'm wrong about that, but it's interesting.
I think it's a great theory. And real quick, I don't want I don't want to steal too much thunder from your very well produced video that you did, but maybe share just a brief summary of there's something in real life that we have here on our planet
Oh yes.
that may have been the inspiration for Aurora.
Yes, because uh, you never know how alien our own oceans are, right? And we have something that is
That's a cool
called
thought. I've never that kind of blows. I was
yeah.
like, wait a second, how alien our own oceans are. That's cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've explored less of, our oceans than we have of the moon's surface, basically. I mean,
Yes.
not obviously not like physically, but it's so anyway, but this one there's a fish out there that's been dubbed the dream fish. I think it's
Hmm.
Sarpa salpa, and it's in the Mediterranean. It's actually caught frequently by fishermen and eaten, but they know to kind of avoid this one fish because it causes a lot of interesting phenomenon. And I think the Romans actually ate it, and I'm not sure exactly what account that they used to base that off of, but um, basically what this fish does is it gets you in a really weird headspace. Few hours after eating it, you get dizzy, confused, blurry vision, a lot of
Right.
uncomfortable side effects. But you also get these strange hallucinations, visual hallucinations, where this one guy saw animals while he was driving
Yeah.
outside, and they were like screaming at him. And there's like he literally said isopods, which I think is just bizarre that you would put that in a medical report. Oh yeah, the patient hallucinated the isopods.
Right.
Um, and anyway, so he went to the hospital, and after I don't know 36 hours he was fine. But it wasn't just this guy. There was other reports too. I think it was an older guy. He happened to see a lot of birds and people screaming at him too. And a lot of these are very
That's
uncomfortable
wild.
hallucinations.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
but
these are
yeah,
not
it's
joy
auditory, it's
rides that they're
visual.
on. This wouldn't be like a fun recreational thing. These is like kind of night terrors almost.
They are a lot like night terrors, yeah. And maybe they alter the chemical to make it more pleasurable. That's one
Hmm.
reason they might be semi-synthetic. And also
Oh,
maybe
oh,
that's,
interesting.
yeah, I mean, that's purely conjecture, but that could be one thing, is they're making it more pleasurable in the lab so that they're having a better trip.
Yeah.
And and when you go to the Astral Lounge, you see ads for Aurora, and they say, the best trip in the settled systems. And again, I
Right.
think a lot of, if you've ever taken hallucinogens, they are probably best taken in the right environment to facilitate a good trip.
Sure, sure.
So I think that's what this whole thing is set up on, the basis that you can have a bad trip. And so that would be interesting too, if gameplay wise, if we have a bad trip versus a good trip. I wonder if that
Right.
there's a distinction that we can make there.
And I know it was like at the very in the trailer that we got in the Xbox showcase, so not in the direct, but in the trailer, we
Uh-huh.
specifically see several clips where it kind of has that like chromatic aberration, like kind of that glowy effect on it,
Yeah.
where a lot of people assume that maybe this is you on Aurora, like this is your brain on drugs kind of thing in the
Yeah.
skillet. This is you on Aurora.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Would that, as far as like the effects of a psychotropic drug, does that seem like it would track with that? Let me see if I can pull that up. This is like right at the very end. So we touched
Oh,
who
yes.
knows, they edited it, but you kind of see all this chromatic aberration here. Like
Yeah.
the reds and greens and hues and blues. But like even right here, it looks like, kind of almost like you have beer goggles on, right?
Yes.
Everything's a little blurry.
I think that's a really interesting observation, actually. I never made the correlation between this specific effect and Aurora, but it totally checks out because, and
Even
drugs,
there.
yeah, yeah. So prescription drugs can actually cause some color distortion too. So you
Okay.
know Viagra, right?
Yes.
There's something called green shift, or is it blue shift? No, I think it's blue shift.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically blue shift, there's a side effect of Viagra where you can actually start seeing things in a more blue shade.
Interesting.
And and so
So
like
that
when you think about drugs affecting the shade of a color, I think that totally checks out.
and so that would have to I mean like was it the cones or rods in your eyes that affect your color?
Both, yeah, yeah,
Both.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And so I think you're right on with that. And it's really just a matter of whether or not this is like a hallucinatory effect versus like
Or just a
some shift
cinematic
with
effect.
your cinematic effect, or if it's like a sensory, like it could be affecting your eye or it could be affecting your brain.
Oh.
And so
Oh
there's
yeah.
two ways where this could actually be the case,
Okay.
due to pharmaceuticals. So yeah, that's a great observation. And yeah, hallucinations like this not uncommon. And even this right here, like you've showed this kind of like out of the universe scope experience. You
Yeah.
definitely have people who experience those either out of body, or they kind of just feel like one with the universe, or they're just
Right.
in another dimension, they describe, which is could
That's
explain a
wild.
lot of what we see with, like, speculations about the universe. And maybe this is an effect of Aurora. Maybe we're seeing the visions through
So
Aurora
Tim, you're
sometimes. I
saying
don't
this
know.
is all a dream.
Oh, it could be all a
we're
dream.
gonna
It
we're
could
gonna
be.
be to the end of Starfield and we wake up. Oh,
Oh my goodness.
there would be
Can you
riots
imagine?
in the street.
There would be. Oh, geez.
Just a quick note here. This is a shorter version of a longer conversation that Tim and I had. We probably had about an hour long, maybe a little bit shorter conversation where Tim dives into a lot of other little details and makes some really interesting observations from those. So if you want to see that full length video, you can head over to Tim's channel. He'll have that up soon, if not right now. And you can check that out at youtube.com/@RPGRX. I'll have the link in the description. Show him a little love from the Starfield Signal community. Go over there, give him a view, a like, a comment, and let him know we appreciate his time and expertise, and it's good to have him on the crew. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us here on Starfield Signal on the channel. I hope all of you have enjoyed this talk where hopefully I asked a few halfway intelligent questions, and Tim was very hospitable to share his intellect and his intelligence and his education and perspective with us. I'm just so excited for this game, and this is such a neat, angle to kind of look at this, to look at Starfield from. So, Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Luke. It's been a pleasure being on your channel. And honestly, I'm no smarter than the rest of you guys. You guys are just as observant as I am. I'm just connecting a few dots because this is what I work in, day out. So,
That's
but
cool.
I'm definitely looking forward to sharing more with you guys. And I love what you're doing here, Luke. So I'll be sure to keep watching.
I love that. Tim, where can people go to kind of show you some love?
Yes. So RPGRX. Just those 5 letters. You'll hopefully find me on YouTube if I'm popular enough to be up on the search page. But yeah, no, I think that's probably the best way to go find me on YouTube. I'm not on any other platform at the moment, so just
Awesome.
make sure you subscribe, and then you'll get my videos.
YouTube's the best. Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for watching. For now, may you find wonder as you journey through the stars. See ya.